everyone. We are really pleased to welcome everybody to let's see here. Whoops, the area webinar series. And let's see here, chat. So you just find and also chat. Okay, good, excellent. Okay, my name is Jeff Hamilton. I work for ARI. I'm the motorized program manager, one of the trainers, and one of the staff members. So my goal here tonight is to welcome our team from Gaia to jump in and give us a presentation about how to use Gaia for stuff. So I'm going to share a screen for just a second and go through a couple of slides, and then I'm going to take the option to turn this over to these guys. So just a second here while I start this. Let's see here, screen 2. There we go. All right, so this is the 2021-22 ARI Continuing Education Webinar Series. Again, thanks for joining us. And let's see here. A notification to everyone here: this webinar is being recorded. So by remaining on this webinar, you consent to being present for the recorded session, and your name and your voice will only appear in this recording if you ask a question at the end of the session. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but my guess is that means if you participate, anticipate being recorded. Thanks. This session is about customizing your maps for winter travel. We are joined by Tony, Jim, and Mary from Gaia, and they're here to show us how this works, improve our skill set as instructors and as backcountry travelers. A quick disclaimer here. Gaia is a proud sponsor of ARI for this year. ARI is grateful for their support and believe they produce a quality product. Our statement is that the presenters are presenting on behalf of ARI tonight, or on behalf of Gaia tonight, and it's Gaia directed presentation and material. So with that, I'll end my screen share. If I can figure out how to do that. No. Have I stopped sharing my screen? Okay, good. In this case,
you weren't sharing earlier
either. I wasn't?
I don't think so. I didn't see anything. But
well, I'm just the master of technology over here. So I'm going to pass this on to some serious engineers who probably know a lot more about using this technology than I do. So thank you very much, Tony and crew, for joining us. So I'm going to mute myself, and I'll just be hanging out here.
Okay, Jeff, thanks. Appreciate the introduction. We're really excited to be here, folks. My name's Tony, as Jeff mentioned, and I'm joined here with Mary and Jim. I'll be walking us through sort of the ARI version of the winter offerings that Gaia GPS has. I think I'm a little biased, of course, but I think they're some of the best out there in terms of navigating safely and confidently in the backcountry in the winter. And the goal of this webinar is to really kind of give you a little bit of an insider's look as to what we have to offer that's really specific to winter backcountry recreation. Mary and Jim are here on behalf of our support and marketing departments, and are really super knowledgeable about the product and many ways that it can be used. And so if you have questions, please don't hesitate to use the chat, and Mary and Jim will try to answer them there. And if they can't, they'll be providing you resources to reach out as a follow-up to connect with us to help answer your questions. So I'm really grateful to have Mary and Jim around to help out with that. So thanks for being here. I, for a little background on myself, I'm the sort of the technical lead on the maps team here at Gaia. So I'm an engineer. I work on the product, and my job is to make sure that the maps that we're offering are really high quality and consistently great for all of you to be using. I develop all new map layers, maintain our existing ones, and really love thinking about backcountry recreation and the ways in which we can make our sort of technological tool better suited to be used in the backcountry really easily and in a way that is helpful. So I really love doing that. It's a great part of my job, and it's really cool to be able to share some of that background with all of you tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can get the chat to make sure that this is working. Is it working? I get like a nod from Mary or Jim. Can you see it? Yes, great. Okay. So this is Gaia GPS. This is our web interface to Gaia GPS. Before I sort of dive into this, I'll just give a very brief history of Gaia. We were started in 2008 by a couple, Andrew and Anna, and they were really enthusiastic backcountry users. They were hikers, backpackers, and they just didn't have an app that suited them well for navigation. And so they made one. And we started out as an app company way back when, 2008, and have really been very app and mobile focused for a long time. And that's really what we excel at. In the last few years, we've been wading into the waters of making a web app, which has been really fun and really engaging, and also creates a whole new world of opportunity for planning backcountry trips. And so we're going to use both interfaces today, but I'm going to start on the web and demonstrate to you some of the really cool things we have for winter travel based on this web interface. But the really cool thing about that is that almost all the features available on the web are available on the mobile apps, and vice versa. So it's a really similar experience across the board, and we're really always working to improve the web as we grow as a company. So this is something that's really always in flux, getting a lot of new features all the time. So Gaia GPS is a great resource for planning backcountry trips. And the one additional caveat I'll give is that many of the features we're going to be looking at today are premium features, but the good news is that all of you are eligible for a 1-year premium subscription as area instructors. So if you need help accessing that, you should have gotten an email about it, but if you're missing that or you need some more help, Mary and Jim are experts in all things subscriptions, and so they can help you get configured with that. So all the things that we're going to go through today, you all have access to. Okay, so what we're going to do, as I mentioned, is give you a sort of a look into the winter features that Gaia GPS offers to really plan safe and confident winter backcountry travel. And the way I like to start with that is by figuring out, where exactly I'm going to plan my trip. Sometimes you already know, but sometimes maybe you're like me, you live in the Puget Sound, and you say, okay, where exactly am I going to do my recreating this weekend? One of the great ways to find out is to start with the Gaia GPS Avalanche Forecast layer. So this is a really standard layer that we've been offering for quite a while, and we just updated it this morning with a couple of new styles. And so I want to turn on that Avalanche Forecast layer just to get a sense for what the forecast is in the region that we're going to be looking. So on the left-hand side of the web interface here, you'll see all these different buttons. There's this overlays button, which helps you turn on and off some of your saved items. We'll go into that in a minute. Layers, which has all the map layers that we have in here. It's a really chunky menu, and then some other items here that we'll get into in a second. We're going to click on this layers button on the left, and it opens this little panel. And we want to look at the Avalanche Forecast layer. Now, the Avalanche Forecast layer is not currently in one of my already turned on layers, and so I need to go down to the bottom of this list and hit the Add Map Layers button, where I can search for Avalanche, and I'll click this little plus button to activate the Avalanche Forecast layer. You'll notice that the map changed a little bit, where there's this gray tint over this area, and there's this new label, which is West Slopes North, and it says Northwest Avalanche Center underneath it. We'll zoom out a little bit just so you can get a larger sense for what this layer looks like. You can see that these colors, these zones, at least in the United States, are all gray. That's because there's no danger rating for these forecast zones yet. There are often forecasts that have been published, but there's no published danger rating yet. And if we zoom out and go a little bit over to Wyoming and Colorado, you can see that they are publishing some danger zones or danger ratings in these zones. And you can see the color of the highest danger rating that's been published as the color of the background here. So that's a really cool thing. When you click on any of these zones, you can see a little more detail on the rating, and then you can click on this link to bring you to the forecast page to find the bulletin. So that's a really great resource for you to just get a high-level overview of what the conditions are. Since we're still pretty early in the season here and we don't have any snow, we don't have any danger ratings. Most recently, this morning, we added this new feature up in Canada where we use the Canadian three danger rating bands that they offer in their forecast. So unlike a lot of the United States forecasts, we actually in Canada have access to these little icons, which we can show the elevation based danger rating. So you can see that in various parts of the Canadian Rockies, et cetera, there are different elevation based danger ratings in each of these zones. Really similar, except in Canada, when you click on these things, you actually get a little more detail in this sidebar. And just like the United States, you can click on that link and be brought to the bulletin for that zone. So the avalanche forecast is a great initial place to start, of course, with your planning. Even though we don't have a danger rating here, I've made the decision that we're going to try to go plan a little route just as a sort of a example in the West Slopes North zone here. We're going to be right outside of Artist Point at the Mount Baker ski area. Really popular place to do some backcountry touring. So that's where we're going to plan a little route today using some of the Gaia GPS winter layers. So the first thing, after I sort of have decided where generally I want to go by reading the avalanche forecast and kind of determining maybe what the conditions are going to be, where I might want to go in general, the next thing I like to do is decide, okay, what is the base map that I'm going to be relying on for planning my route, just sort of without thinking about any special layers. What's the sort of basic map that I want to have access to when I'm planning my route? The map we're looking at right now is what's called Gaia Topo. It's our flagship map. This is my bread and butter from an engineering perspective. This is what I spend most of my time on in partnership with our head cartographer. We build this layer to include the most up-to-date trails, roads, mountain names, so you can see ski lifts here. This is sort of our bread and butter in terms of producing a map that's really great for a whole variety of backcountry use cases. One of my favorite things about it is that we've actually built our own tree cover layer, so you can see this green area on the map shows you where the trees are, and this whiter color is demonstrating where there are no trees, no vegetation. So that's a really cool feature of this map. And you can see the trails and, of course, the trail labels, all the things that you might expect on a web map. But really exciting news is that yesterday we released a brand new version of this map, which is specific for winter recreation. And so I'm going to go over back to my layers tab here and go and find the Gaia Winter Map. This is a layer that's available to premium users. I forgot to mention that this Gaia Topo base map is available to anyone, regardless of whether or not they're a premium user. So, for example, all of your students in your courses can have access to this topo map, whether or not they have a Gaia GPS premium membership. The Gaia Winter layer is a premium member layer. I think it's a really amazing layer. So I'm going to turn that on. I'll disable the Gaia Topo layer for now and make sure that the Gaia Winter has its opacity slider all the way over to the right. And you can see a couple of differences here already. First is the general color scheme is a little bit different. So we sort of went for a more wintry set of colors. It's a little bluer, which is just sort of a fun little touch for the winter. But in particular, you can see there's actually a lot more information that's relevant to winter backcountry or winter recreation in general. The Mount Baker ski area shows up here with a lot of the named runs already listed, which is a nice feature consistent with their difficulty ratings. This green, blue, black, and then the sort of orangey color is a double black run. That's in there. We also, if you notice, we have in this region actually some ski tours that have been added to the open source geospatial database we use to build this map. It's called OpenStreetMap. Some folks have actually added ski tours into this database, and we show them here on the map. So these are suggested routes that folks have found in guidebooks or have done themselves and have chosen to add into the map, and they show up here. The other thing that's really cool about Gaia Topo, if you're a cross-country skier, is that there's all these Nordic ski routes that show up here on the Gaia Topo winter base map. And if you go to sort of another place where there's maybe more of that, no, that's not one of them. But anyway, if there's more sort of cross-country skiing or fat biking or downhill skiing, you'll see all of that show up on the winter base map. Similar to the summertime base map or our other Gaia Topo base map, the tree cover shading is really, it's the same. It's just slightly different color. This greenish color is the tree cover, and it shows up a little more strongly in this base map just to sort of emphasize the role of trees in the winter recreation. And one really interesting feature that we decided on for this base map is we de-emphasized summer trails. And so one of the things about using Gaia Topo in the winter is that summer trails are still pretty prominent. And of course, as we all know, sometimes following the summer trail isn't necessarily the best choice, especially in a winter environment where there are terrain-based hazards. Following the summer trail may lead you astray from a winter a winter navigation perspective. And so we chose to de-emphasize those summer trails, both because you can't really see them in the winter, and also because it's a sort of a bit of a safety play there for us to demonstrate that landscape is really important rather than preview trails. So that's sort of a preview of the Gaia Topo winter base map, and we'll come back to this in a minute. But I want to show you a couple of other options that are totally based on your personal preference that you can use to use as your base map when you're navigating. The first one I want to show you is a really old school traditional one that I still sometimes use. This is our USGS topo map layer. Really, old school standard, this is what we all grew up using. It's what I grew up using. The USGS topos, really high quality. This is where we based a lot of our map designs off of. So this is yet another reason, yet another option for your base map for your planning. One thing about the USGS maps is that their tree cover data is a little bit out of date because these maps are older. So that's one potential reason you might want to compare with Gaia Topo, because we have a little bit of a newer version, but you can see they still have that shading for the vegetation. And then another option folks like to use is the United States Forest Service base map, which is this one. I think it's really beautiful. I really like the colors. I think it's a really cool visualization of terrain as well. Again, totally up to personal preference, which one you choose to use. Then finally, the last one I want to show you is our satellite topo base map. So this is the same as the Gaia Topo map in terms of the information that's on it. The only difference is that it actually has the satellite imagery as the base. Instead of those colors, you can actually use satellite imagery to take a look at the terrain. So you can get a really fine scale view of where the vegetation is, where the rocks might be, where the snow has been in the past, where there might be glaciated terrain, lakes, things like that. So those are sort of the bread and butter base maps that we have. And I want to switch back to Gaia Winter as the sort of one that we're going to use for this particular exercise. But again, totally up to your personal preference, what you choose. And Gaia is a really amazing tool in the sense that we have a whole variety to choose from. So that's sort of my first step, is what's the base map going to be? The next thing that's really critical for me in backcountry trip planning, of course, and that you're probably all familiar with this, is we really want to know what the avalanche hazard is based on the terrain that's near us. And one of the ways that we can do that using Gaia GPS is with our slope angle shading layer. This is a pretty standard tool nowadays in backcountry winter recreation. So we're going to turn that on. And when you first turn on the slope angle layer, it turns on full brightness. So that's a little overwhelming, but this actually illustrates one of the really amazing features of Gaia, is that you can customize just how bright this slope angle shading is. So unlike some other opportunities to engage with this information, which sort of choose this brightness for you, you can pick it on your own. So we're going to dial that back a little bit, and maybe we'll add a little more just so we can make sure it's there, we can see it. This is where I like my slope angle shading to be, but you might like it a little more, or you might like it a little less. So I'll put mine right back there so we can see it. And if you're curious about what the different colors mean, the way you can access the legend is by going over here to where it says slope angle and hovering over the little rectangle. There's an eye on it. Click on the eye, and here's the slope angle legend. So you can see these yellowish colors are relatively low angle. And then as we get up to the 35-degree range and higher, we go from red to purple over to black. So pretty standard color scheme. Somebody asked in the chat, can you access the winter layer on the mobile app? Yes, all of these layers are available on the mobile app. If you're looking on your phone right now, you may not have access to it right this moment, which is just sort of a technical thing about how your phone updates maps, but I'm sure Mary or Jim could help with that if necessary. But yeah, the winter layer is available to everyone right now. Thanks for that question. So now that we've got slope angle turned on, we're going to actually go ahead and show you how you can actually plot a route. So where you might want to travel, like where you're going to start, where you're going to end, where your descent might be, all that sorts of those sorts of questions. And so the reason why we might do this is so that we can, when we go to the field, we can say, okay, I've plotted out this route. I have it on my phone. I can generally try to follow it, assessing terrain, of course, as we go, and have my pre-planned knowledge already stored in the phone, just to make sure that we all have access to all the research that we did about our trip before we did it. So the way I'm going to do that is by Going over to the create section on the left-hand side of the sidebar here, you might be able to see my cursor, but it's on the left. And all of these buttons allow you to make a certain kind of thing on the map. This first button here is a waypoint option, so it allows you to add a point on the map. And this one, this route button, allows you to add a route, which is what we're going to do here right now. Click on that button, you see panel up, and we're going to start at the backcountry parking here at Mount Baker ski area, which is a really popular spot to start backcountry skiing. And so we're going to click there, and you'll see this big sort of blue dot shows up, and that's going to be the start of our route. And we're eventually, I forgot to mention this, we're going to go over to this Swift Creek Basin over here, which is a really cool little zone to ski in, lots of trees, some steeper stuff. It's kind of fun. So we're here and we're starting in this zone. And if you notice, I'm going to put my cursor over here, and you'll see that the blue dotted line snaps to the road right there. This is a really useful feature in the summer when you're going to be traveling known trails and you sort of know that you want to stick to the trail. But in the winter, as we mentioned, you're not always following known trails. And so we might want to turn that feature off. And the way we do that is we go over here to the routing mode section. This is the same feature on the mobile app, same idea. And click on this drop down and go to straight line. So we sort of disable that snapping to roads feature. And so then we can just click and drag over here. As we're clicking, we add these new points. And this is the sort of the general way that we're going to be adding these waypoints on our route, sort of at the edge of the ski area here. And I'm just kind of drawing pretty general points. And we'll stop right here. So as you can see, this route that I designed here mostly tries to avoid some steeper terrain. It's closer to some, but we can tell that by the slope angle shading. And that is a really sort of nice feature, and enables us to just draw a route out really quickly, and while also having access to this sort of terrain knowledge with the slope angle shading. So that's a really nice feature. We can save that, and now we have access to our route right there. One thing I forgot to mention about the slope angle shading, this is a question we get, especially from professionals like you all, is we get some questions about, the accuracy of our slope angle data and where it comes from and how much you can trust it. If you've ever sort of dug into this a little bit from a technical perspective, slope angle is one of those things that can be pretty tricky in the backcountry, because if you have a certain coarseness of the information that's used to make the slope angle data, for example, if it's too rough, if it's too coarse, you might miss small pieces of terrain that could actually be consequential in given a certain snowpack situation. So for example, if you have a coarse data set that's going into your slope angle, you might be missing small rollovers or little hills or things like that that won't show up in your slope angle shading. And so Gaia GPS has a really unique way of handling this, and that is that you can click anywhere on the map with slope angle turned on, and you'll see that over here on the left-hand side is the resolution of the slope, the data that went into producing this particular location of slope angle data. And so this is a sort of technical kind of power user feature to give you a sense for how precise the information that we're using to produce the slope angle is. We also have a super power user feature. If you really want to get a good sense of this across a large landscape, you can turn on, you can go to the layers tab here and turn on the slope angle resolution layer and make that nice and bright. And you can zoom out and see actually the resolution of all the data that we have access to in our slope angle layer. So you can see that in some places where it's green, and again, you can look at the legend over here, you can see that green is less than 9 meters, 10 to 20 meters is purple, and then greater than 20 meters is orange. This is how we discern how accurate the slope angle is. And of course, a smaller is better in terms of resolution. So it allows us to see finer scale terrain features. And so if you really want to dig into sort of the data we have in our database for generating slope angle, you can use this. And we're always updating this. In fact, this morning, I just spent 4 hours updating a bunch of new areas that are going to be coming out next week or so. So we're always bringing in higher resolution LiDAR data into this data set. So always being updated to have the most recent data in there. So a little bit of an under the hood on slope angle there that some people care about, some people don't. But anyway, now we're back here. We have our recorded track. The one feature that's really relevant to a lot of winter folks is, hey, my friend has a GPX track from their phone or their watch, or that somebody sent them, they found on the internet, and they want to bring it into their map. They want to see it on Gaia GPS. We have a really easy way to do that. On the left-hand side, you can click on this Import Data button. And when you click on that, you click on Select Files, and you are going to go pick your GPX file from your friend, open it, and you can see there's your friend's GPX track right here. They went out there a couple weeks ago. Here's their track that they recorded on their phone or their watch or whatever. You can bring that right in. So if you want to, you can reference it. Down here, we'll click the Save button, and now it's going to be saved right to your account, just like that. So that is another really cool feature that if you don't want to plan a route, somebody can send you one, you can still use it here in Gaia GPS. All right, so now what we're going to do is do one additional thing that is a sort of a fun feature of Gaia GPS that a lot of folks use in lieu of route planning. So some folks that I know, for example, when they're ski touring, they don't really like to plan out their whole route. They don't like to draw the line, but they do like to add some waypoints just to sort of use as navigational tools. And so on the left-hand side here, really easy to do that, just like the routes. We can click on the waypoint button, and that drops a waypoint right in the middle of the map. I might want to add the bottom of the valley, the place I don't want to go much further because I know it's kind of tough to get out once you go past this point. So I will add this waypoint here, and I'll name it Valley Bottom. And then I can save that. And so now I've got this waypoint saved, and it'll be in my account. We can add another waypoint in the parking lot in case we need to know where the parking lot is. There's the parking lot. You can add all sorts of waypoints. You can add a waypoint at your stopping zone, maybe your lunch spot. Maybe if you're teaching a course, you can add your couple of your teaching locations. Those are great opportunities to use waypoints there as well. So waypoints, another very strong feature of Gaia GPS. Okay, finally, the thing I wanted to show you before we move on here is one of my favorite features of the most recent iteration of Gaia GPS, and that is the ability to view all of this that we've been going through in 3 dimensions. And so this is a really amazing way and kind of a more modern way to get a cool view of your route that really helps you understand, as you'll see in a moment, the terrain in a different way. So I'll go down here to the bottom right of the window, and there's a little button here that says 3D. I'm going to click on that. And you'll see that the map turns 3D, just like that. And we can use the control key on your keyboard to rotate it. So we can rotate, we can zoom in. And this gives us a really neat view of the routes that we've planned and the topography and the slope angle. So you can click on the route you planned, bring it up a little more strongly. You can see where it's going. You can see where your buddy skied. He skied off of this little ridge, potentially staying, to the right of this steeper zone where the road cut is. Really gives you just, I think, a really strong terrain knowledge, which is just a really valuable tool and is one that we're really excited to offer at Gaia GPS. This feature is coming to our mobile apps within the next few months, and so we're really excited to bring that. And I hope that it will be a great tool for backcountry route planning and navigation in the field. You can use any of our map layers in 3D. So right now we're looking at Gaia Winter and Slope Angle, but I like to throw in the satellite layer underneath everything here. So I'll just turn this one off for a second. Now we can see the satellite and the slope angle. And that's just yet another way to investigate the terrain. If you don't like the slope angle, you can, of course, just turn that down with the opacity slider and really just customize the map layers that you are using to stay safe and confident in the backcountry. So I really love 3D. I think it's a super feature. I use it all the time to plan my trips now. As soon as we rolled it out, I was really excited. So really cool new addition, and hopefully you'll be seeing it on your mobile apps really soon. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll toggle off the 3D by clicking on that button on the right-hand corner, and we will turn on the Gaia Winter Map, stack it underneath the slope angle layer, and turn the slope angle back on. So we're sort of back where we started from. And so before we sort of switch over to the actual, like maybe some more of our specific winter specific layers, I want to show you our last feature that is relevant to route planning, which is sharing your route. So let's say we're back on this blue one that we made. You want to send it to your maybe it's your co-instructor, your ski partner, your students, whatever it might be. You've planned this route out and you want to share this track with them. If you click on this route, just by clicking on the not that one, but this one, the one we just made, we can do it two ways. We can either click on the export button down here in this zone, and we can decide of 3 different file formats which we want to export, and we can put those in an email or send those in a text message even to your whoever. Or you can click on the share button, and you click on the link button, and it gives you a URL that's been copied to your clipboard that then you can just paste into a browser or send to someone in an email or a text message again, and that just is going to bring them straight up to this this route. So really easy. From there, they can save it to their Gaia account if they have one. So yes, great opportunity to share with Gaia GPS as well. Super easy. Okay, so now that we've created a route, and we've talked a little bit about some of the basic base maps and the slope angle shading and all that. I want to give you a sense for some of my favorite ways to use Gaia in terms of determining like what the conditions that we might expect when we actually go out to this location in a couple of days. And we have quite a number of layers that help to deliver that information to you. And so you can imagine, it's Friday night, you're going out tomorrow, you want to get a sense for what is the experience going to be like when I'm there. And we have quite a few that offer some clues into that. The first that I want to show you is our snow stations layer. So again, just like before, we click on the layers button in the left-hand side here, and I'm going to turn on this snow stations daily layer. This layer is a combination of what's known as SNOTEL sites, which are commonly used for winter sort of snow depth measurements. They're automated weather stations that are all around the American West for measuring snow. And then we also have the British Columbia equivalent. So we have all the British Columbia stations in there as well. We're looking to find more, but it's sort of hard to find more. So we're still on the hunt. If you know about any more automated stations, let me know. But we built this layer so that you could get some more like measurements of what snow depth and snow water equivalent is in the regions you want to be recreating. But as you notice, nothing really has changed in this map, even as I'm zooming out. And that's because there's just not that many of these stations. Remember, they're physical stations. They have to be, set up and maintained. So there's only so many of them. So typically you need to zoom out. And as I've done that, you can see that this Wells Creek station has showed up over here. And if I zoom out even more, there's an Elbow Lake station way over here. And if I go a little bit further north, there's the Chilliwack River station here in British Columbia. There's Nooksack River station, or Nooksack station over here. The colors of these snowflakes, as we can learn from the legend, tell you the difference in snow depth in the last 24 hours at that station. So if it's black, there's been no change. If they're orange or red, there's been snow loss. And if they're blue or green, there's been a gain in snow depth. This gray color means there's no depth reported. That's what's going on with this Wells Creek station. It does look like, though, we actually have some snow depth change there. So I don't know why that happened. Maybe I should look into that. But ordinarily, this would have been colored with the change in snow depth. But either way, you can see that the snow depth in this location is 4 inches, which is probably not quite enough to ski on, maybe if you're adventurous. But you can also click on this this link here to bring you to the full station page to get more information about this. The thing I use this layer for is I look at the elevation, which is really important here because, of course, as we know, difference in snow can occur drastically across elevation. So we want to make sure that we're looking at a station that's sort of relevant. Where we're going to be recreating, if we zoom back in and we look at the contour lines, we can see we're going to be right around 4,800 feet. So sort of similar, maybe a little higher, maybe some more snow than what's being shown here. But in general, the vibe here is that there's not too much snow, which is mostly accurate. So that's a great resource to access the SNOTEL stations really easily, and also the British Columbia equivalents. So I really love the Snow Stations daily layer, really great way to get real-time, up-to-date information. These update once an hour, so you can always check them for the most up-to-date information. So that's a really great resource. Another one is our snow depth layer, which is a little bit coarser. And as you can see, I don't actually have it added here. So just like before, I'm going to click on my Add Map Layers button, and I'm going to search for snow depth. And there it comes up here. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to maybe take down the opacity a little bit so we can see through it. And you can see that there is actually some snow on the ground, which is somewhat of what we saw earlier with the SNOTEL sites, the snow stations data. And again, we can use the legend here to determine just how much the model is suggesting. These blue colors, which is right where we are in the Mount Baker area, there's roughly 9 to 20 or 3 to 10, somewhere in there, inches of snow on the ground, which again is maybe enough to ski, maybe not. But you can see around Mount Baker and around Mount Chuckson, there's quite a bit more snow, obviously, because they're higher. So this is a great way to get a very general sense for where the snow is, get an idea of where the snow line might be. And this is updated every day as well. So this is another opportunity to see where the snow is, and roughly at what elevation it is and roughly how deep it is. So another great opportunity for sort of some more situational awareness. Take that layer off by clicking on this little check mark there. And I want to show you one that I use quite often, and that is our snow forecast layer. So the last two I showed you were sort of, okay, how much snow is on the ground? What is that going to mean for me? These ones here actually show you the forecasted snow. So first thing I'm going to do is turn on the 24-hour snow forecast. And if you are astute, you might have noticed that nothing changed here. What that means, of course, is that there's no snow in the forecast for the next 24 hours, at least in the Mount Baker zone. So that's a bummer, but at least means that we're probably not going to encounter too much frozen precipitation tomorrow when we go out. And we can just turn on the other layers as an example. The 48-hour layer, you can see, actually did make a big change. If we zoom out, you can see what it's referring to. So this is the 2-inch color that we're seeing here. So there's roughly a 2-inch forecast in this zone, and the 1 inch is this darker green color. And then finally, we can look at the 72-hour forecast, and there's a little more that's being forecasted as it accumulates from this storm. Looks like we're actually going to get quite a bit of snow in the next 3 days in the northern Cascades, which maybe will change where we're going to ski tomorrow or whatever. But that is another great resource to determine what the forecast is going to look like. So yet another great opportunity for winter recreation here with Gaia. Okay, so we've planned our route. We've imported our friend's route. We've gotten the conditions. We've done our research. Now it's like time to go into the field. It's time to get this information into a way that we can actually bring it with us out into the world and use it without too much hassle. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to the phone app. So hopefully you can see my phone now. This is Gaia GPS on the iPhone. It's really similar to Gaia GPS on the Android. They're really very similar. We just happen to be showing you iPhone today. And what I'm going to show you now is how to get this, this data that we've just generated. So this route that we planned out and the route that we got from our friend, and actually bring those into the app. So the way I'm going to do that is on the very bottom of the app, you can see there's a little saved button. And I'll just tap on that and pull down here, and you'll see that it loads in my waypoints and the routes that I plotted. So we can go back to the map and we see all that on the map. Zoom in a little bit, and there's those routes that we loaded. You'll notice here that I don't have slope angle turned on yet, which is something I really want. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to go up to the top right, the little squares that are all stacked on top of each other up there. I'm going to tap on that and then make sure that I select slope angle and change the opacity a little bit. And now we've got slope angle. So slope angle is loaded in there, where we've got our Gaia Winter base map. So we're ready to go. Except there's one last thing that we want to make sure we do, and it's one of Gaia's sort of original amazing features and remains one of our flagship features to this day, is downloading maps offline. Of course, when you're in the backcountry, there's a pretty low chance that you're going to have cell phone service. And what that means is that if you want access to your maps, you really want to make sure that you've saved them onto your phone ahead of time. And that's what Gaia GPS is really good at, and we've been good at for a long time, in my opinion. So we'll do that by pressing this plus button at the top and click on the download maps button, which is towards the bottom of this list. And that'll bring up this little rectangle. You want to make sure before you do this that all of the layers that you might want to save offline, you've got added to the layers list. And we've got all sorts of help articles and stuff like that on how to do this in more detail. But what I'll do is I'll just grab this little box, I'll move it, and then grab one of the corners to make it bigger so I can select the whole zone that I want to be downloading for. On the top right, I'll click on save. And now we have some options. The first thing we want to think about is what kind of resolution we want to download this data at. Generally, when you're looking at a small region and you're wanting the best information at the highest resolution, you want to definitely pick the high resolution option here. Whenever you're going on a trip and you're downloading the maps for that trip, high resolution is the best option. If you just want to download a whole state's worth of maps, maybe just so you can see very generally where the trailheads are, where the big trails are. If you want to get a good sense for that, maybe where the big roads are, you can use the low resolution. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you can use medium. I always download things on high because we at Gaia have been really careful to keep the sizes of our downloads really small. And so you can download most anything at high resolution and it won't take up too much space on your phone. But if you're limited in space, we offer this so that you can get a little bit less resolution, less detail, but you can still store the maps offline. Underneath here, you can see all the layers that we have access to right now that we've added to our layers window. And I've chosen to download Gaia Winter and Slope Angle. I actually don't want Gaia Winter meters. I want Gaia Winter feet because that's my preference. And let's say you also want some satellite tiles. We can add that in here too, just so you can have access to satellite when you're offline, and maybe one additional base map. We can hit next in the top. You can add a name here if you want. If you don't, it'll use this default name, which is perfectly fine. And you can save that. And once you save that, it brings up this little window and it shows you the progress of all the downloads. So it usually happens within a minute or two for most downloads. It's pretty quick. And once this is finished, you'll have access to these maps offline, which is, again, a really cool feature that we offer that I think is critical to being safe and confident in the backcountry. You always know your maps are with you, even when you don't have cell phone service. So that's cool. You can hit the done button at the top left and it brings you back to our main screen, which is, well, it went away, but in the top left, there was a little thing in the corner that showed you the download progress was still happening. It goes away when the download's finished, which is what just happened. So now we're confident that we have the downloaded maps, which is great. And then the one final feature I just want to point you to without too many details is the track recording feature and the photo waypoint feature. So on the top left, you can see the record and the camera buttons. If you hit that record button, it will actually start tracking where you're moving, and you can use this throughout your whole day without decimating your battery life too much. We've spent a lot of energy trying to keep that pretty efficient for folks. And you can track your route. You can see where you went. So you can maybe put that in your personal trip diary. You can send it to your friends to give them some beta if you want to share your track with them. And when you use that camera button, any photos you take will be saved as a waypoint with that track that you download. So if you see a cool, snow feature, maybe a cornice, or you see an avalanche happen, something like that, you can take a picture of it and it'll be geolocated along with that picture and attached to your track. So when you share the track, it comes along with those photos, which is an awesome field feature that I find myself using all the time. Mary and I were just talking about how we like to take pictures of our campsites that are really cool and store them as Gaia waypoints to go back to them with a photo. So tons of uses for that feature as well. When you record a track, you can choose whether or not to make that track public or private. And there's a default setting in the settings here where you can say, always make my tracks private or always make them public. So you have control over whether that information is public or private at all times, which is also great. So speaking of public and private, there's one thing I forgot to mention, which I forgot to mention for a reason, actually, because I think it's sort of maybe not the most applicable thing for this particular audience and winter recreation in general, winter safety in general, but could be a nice way to start your trip planning. And that is our public tracks feature. Now, of course, it's really important to recognize that, I'm going to show you this feature as because it's sort of one we have, and it's one that could be useful, but it's one that is really best used with a lot of caution, because of course, just because someone has gone into a particular place via a particular path doesn't, of course, mean that that's the path we want to take for all the reasons that you already know, of course. So a lot of caveats there, but at the same time, we have access to a huge amount of tracks that our users have saved and made public for the community. And if you're curious about just sort of a general idea of where folks go in a region and how they might get there, you can turn on our public tracks layer to look and see where those places are. The way we do that is we click on the layers button on the top right, same those stacked things, squares, click on the map overlay at the very top, and then we can turn on public tracks. Just like that, we hit done. And now these green lines are places that folks have shared their location as they've tracked their route along their trip. And you can see that quite a few of them happen to overlap with the region that we're going to be in. So at least that gives us some sense of an idea of, hey, if we've never been here before, people go that way. Maybe that tells us one thing, or maybe it doesn't. Again, totally up to interpretation. I would say that if this is something that you're interested in using, again, just be really cautious and careful to know that just because someone has gone somewhere doesn't mean you need to go that way as well for a given set of conditions or whatever it may be. So public tracks is a cool way for you to see where people are going, where people have been. And I use it a ton, both in the winter and the summer, just to sort of get a lay of the land if I'm in a new place. So public tracks, very cool. One of the final features I'll mention about public tracks is you can actually interact with all of these little green lines. If you tap on one, it'll show you the name of that track right here. And this one, it's called 2017 Mount Baker, BC. And you can get all sorts of information about it. You can get some statistics about it, speed this person took, their elevation profile, yada, yada. And you can actually save this to your account if you want, which is cool. And this is one thing that some people use public tracks for. It's great to be able to actually interact with these individual tracks if you want to. So that is the sort of quick, dirty tour of Gaia GPS's winter map features. And I think now is a great opportunity to ask folks if there are questions, and we're happy to answer them. I saw there were a few that went by. I'll stop sharing and read them. Are there any of you guys pulled out, Jim or Mary, that we should talk about?
I've answered most of them. The one that I haven't answered is there's a question about, we do a lot of real-time live remote planning. And so the answer to that is you can, if everyone's in service, you can use a shared folder and things will sync. But if there's no service, you can't share stuff between devices easily. You could airdrop GPX files, that would work. I can write up some details about how that would work, and I'll put it in that Google Doc. That I don't know if we've shared it yet, but let me share this Google Doc that we made for you all.
Yeah, Jim just shared this awesome Google Doc he put together in the chat, which is just a great compilation of Gaia GPS tutorials and resources. So thanks for putting that together, Jim.
Yeah.
I have actually airdropped routes in the field.
Me too.
It worked pretty well.
It seems like this person commented again, they said mostly concerned with remote planning at home. Yeah, so I mean, you can certainly do things that way. It's not, I think a lot of people with like Google Docs and all this have this kind of like real-time updating thing. We don't offer that, in the sense that if someone makes a change to a line, it's not going to immediately show up on somebody else's computer like you would if you might type a sentence in a Google Doc and it comes up immediately. But if you save your changes and then your friend who's in somewhere else reloads the page, those changes will be present on their version of whatever it is, an area or a route, as long as you've saved it and they have the shared version of that. So that's certainly possible. It's a little bit inconvenient, to be honest, but it is possible to do that.
Chad has a question about download speeds. Chad, will you just put your email in the chat and I can follow up with you? Oftentimes, this can be unique to like different phones or different sources, but as Tony kind of advertised the Gaia Topo a whole lot, and Gaia Topo is like optimized for mobile downloads. So like I always recommend taking that source with you. But yeah, download speeds can be dependent on like a few different things. One thing that I'll just say, even though it's a little bit technical, is if you have an iPhone, your screen needs to stay on and you need to leave the app open. Don't switch to another app. Otherwise that'll pause the downloads. That seems to get a lot of people, gets a lot of people with like their Spotify downloads as well. Yeah, but Chad, I will follow up with more details on that.
Do we have any other questions that we can answer? I guess not. Well,
You don't see anything come through in the chat right now?
yeah, no. Last call. Here's one. Will Gaia change how many waypoints are stored? I have many waypoints in a geographical region, and I do not want to hide the folder, only specific waypoints.
So on the website, it's possible to control the visibility of individual waypoints, but it's not yet possible in the app. And that is a common feature request that we get. So I will, yeah, and I can see how it'd be really useful. So I will if you send me your email, I will make a note of that and follow up with you.
Yeah, and we really value, Jim basically just said this, but we really value feedback from folks who use the app, especially in a professional context, because it's sort of the hardest test in some ways for the things we build, is folks who rely on it for safety and education. And so if you have feedback or comments, like the support team is ready and willing to hear them, and they pass those along to all the engineers as well. So it's really valuable for us to hear y'all's thoughts, because we're always working to improve.
We actually just got another question. There's like the chat and there's a Q&A. So we got questions coming from all angles here, but I just put it in the chat so everyone could see it. There are a number of great options for route planning. What are the key features that set Gaia apart from the others? What do you think about that, Tony? Because you've worked on the website a lot with routing and maps and stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, one of the really cool things, and this is, I think, potentially less relevant for the winter crowd, but I think is relevant to anyone at the end of the day, is we spend a ton of our energy and resources making sure that like the base map we're providing to you is a combination of the richest sources of information that we can find. So for example, you can compare our base map, for example, with others that you might find online, wherever. And we have sort of in places that are really sparse in other offerings on other folks' apps, we've got a lot more trails, we've got a lot more waterways, we've got a lot more just sort of rich information in the map that we're offering. And this is true across the board, across most of our maps. We spent a lot of time really sourcing that information. Last year we released an update that added, I think it was like, I can't remember what the number was, many hundreds of thousands of miles of new roads and trails to the map in the United States. And that's something that folks just like are hard pressed to offer that we are offering. So if you want like a base map that's really trustworthy and really comprehensive, I think that Gaia GPS offers that as a place to start. And of course, the product is really only as good as the map is, and so I think we have a really strong presence in that world. And and I see Chad asked the question, the base map is global. So we base the Gaia map on a global data set called OpenStreetMap, which is the same that everybody else uses. That's our starting point. And then we layer information on top of that, but it's always the base that we're using from. And everywhere in the world, OpenStreetMap is being edited by people every single minute of every day. And so it's a really comprehensive resource for the whole planet.
Can I add to that a little bit too?
Yeah, of course.
On the route planning side of it, and this is less important in backcountry skiing. But one thing that Gaia GPS has that is really valued by people who do a lot of trail hiking or even off-roading or anything on a trail or road is we have snap to trail route planning. We have snap to trail route planning not only in the web, but also in the app, but also in the app offline. So you can actually download route data for a specific area. So let's say you're going to Yosemite and you're going to download your maps. You can also download the trail data with it. And when you're in the field offline and you're thinking, oh, I need to reroute myself here in the middle of Yosemite where I have no cell service, you can actually create a new route out in the field and it'll snap to the trail for you. So you get very specific data for your route when you're having to reroute it. The other thing that I use a lot in my route planning, and maybe I shouldn't rely on it so much, but I'll look on the app and I'll see, I'll turn on public tracks. So let's say I want to, see if somebody's bagged a peak or something, and I can see a route and I read the route on the map, but then I'll turn on public tracks and I'll just see, oh, somebody actually did go up the route this way in a place where there's no trail. So, and then you can download those routes directly to your phone if you want. I think Tony covered it though. You really have to be careful when you're using those because like you might look at somebody did something in the summer and then you look at it in the winter and it's crossing a bunch of avalanche paths and you don't want to be in that zone. So it's definitely something you need to watch out for. But those are two features I use in my route planning that Gaia GPS has that I love very much. So
a few more questions come through here. One that I want to go back up to Linda Lawson. If I've never used Gaia, where should I start with the online version? Then when more familiar, switch to the app. Yeah, what Tony did is like a big tour of like pretty much everything in the product. But I would say like the very basic thing to master is downloading a map and then like showing your location on the app. And if you do that, like it's really, really useful to you because you can like see exactly where you are on the map. Linda, I'd suggest that Google Doc that we linked to, I'd like work through the links in order in there, and that should give you a pretty good workflow.
Also, as a brand new user, sometimes what I like to do is to teach people just go out in the field with it and press the locator button. And I mean, that's such a great way to start. Open up the app on a trail and press a locator button, and every 10 minutes or so, just press that and you can see where you are on the map all the time. That's a great place to just kind of get familiar with it. And then maybe the next time you can press the record button in the app and you can record your track. Just start playing around with it. It's a lot of fun once you start discovering new features every time you go out. So
I would agree. That's a great way to like enjoy using the app without having to think too hard about it. Is download it, hit the button, see yourself.
Yep. Always know your location.
One of the questions that I'm seeing pop up on the chat has to do with using the tool as an instructor, creating your maps as an instructor and then sharing your maps to your students as part of your first day of field travel. Can you talk to, how that works for you guys, how you use that tool to accomplish that task?
What do you think, Jim?
This is an interesting question that is a little bit complicated, but there's a whole lot of power to Gaia GPS. And so people often think of the map as like a static thing, like this piece of paper with like lines drawn on it, and you just hand it to someone. But in Gaia GPS, like everyone has to go and like download their own like base maps in terms of like topo maps, slope angle, that sort of stuff on their phone. And then what you would share with them in terms of the map is just like routes, waypoints, that sort of stuff. And so a great way to do it is just to, you could use a shared folder, but probably for an Avalanche course, what's even easier is to just create a couple of GPX files and send them to the students, and they can import it and have it on their device. And those instructions are in that Google Doc. That's like part of the workflow.
And I would say, as you know, as Jim pointed out, I can think of 3 different ways to accomplish that task in Gaia GPS, depending on sort of how smooth you want it to be in terms of the student's experience, how much information you want to include. Like, you know, do you have 1 track or do you have 6 and 9 waypoints? You know, there's all these sort of questions that change the approach you might take, but we have the features and the functionality to be able to do all versions of that spectrum. So, and you know, one thing that is kind of frustrating, I think, for some folks right now is that there's no ability right this moment to sort of share the combination of layers that somebody's looking at. And so I'll give you a little sneak peek of a functionality that's coming to Gaia GPS pretty soon, don't know when, shortly in the next several months, is the ability to actually produce a combination of layers. You know, you can set your own opacity, add the base map, add the slope angle, add the satellite, put the different combinations you care about, and then save and share that combination with whoever you want. So everybody's looking at the same set of layers at the same time that's customizable to the activity you're doing. And that's coming, that's being worked on as we speak. So that's something that's coming too. We'll sort of solve that problem.
So we got a couple more questions here. Following a GPX route, and I couldn't figure out how to have markers at regular increments, but I could not get distances on the labels. Can you clarify what you mean by labels in that instance? You can see like every mile along the route if you turn that on in settings. Or Mary or Tony, do you feel like you know what they're asking?
Say that again.
It feels like
I'm thinking it's those little markers maybe on when you plan a route.
Oh, okay, but no actual numbers. Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. If you, yeah, I mean, this is something we could consider as a feature. I think the way, Tony, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think the way that the algorithm works right now is it just like maybe starts at one end or the other and like divides it up, but we don't actually have labels in there. So that probably is not too hard to add. But
yeah, I think that's a great feature request to offer up to the team. I think because it would those little dots might be a lot more valuable if they had labels on them. So
yeah, totally.
That's definitely great feedback.
Yeah, Curtis, if you put your email in there, I will follow up with you about that feature request.
Writing it down, the feature request here.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, I mean, there's a ton of room for improvement, and it's like super exciting for us to like work on these things and to hear like, you know, how people are using it and like what they need. And we have one unanswered question right now about, can geospatial maps be printed from Gaia Online? So you can print it actually like exports it as a PDF, but it is not a geo-referenced PDF. But it is like an image that you can like print out and is useful. Right now, it's not, you should just know it's not possible to print it to scale. And so if you were to try to like overlay a UTM grid reader on it or something like that, it's not going to line up quite right. It's a different projection. So don't expect it to have that capability. But yeah, that is a long-standing feature request, and I'll add your vote to that as well.
been some great questions on how to engage with all the different features of the tool. What's your favorite feature, in a sense, Tony, if you were to try to?
Oh man, great question. I really think our like snap to trail thing is really cool. Really makes trip planning super quick and easy because you got to get from here to there, and there's a trail. So instead of clicking 9 times, you can click twice, and the route will follow the trail that's already there most of the time. So that's a really cool feature, and we're always trying to make that better. I enjoy working on that. I'm also happen to be responsible for that feature, so it's a little bit of a pet project for me, but I also enjoy that it works and I use it all the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to add my 2 cents.
Yeah,
So,
you should.
Please do.
3D maps are the best thing in satellite. It is so fun to look at all your routes. Like you could plan a route, and I do a lot of like off-trail backpacking. So I'll plan a route over a pass or something, and I'll think, I can look at the topo map and see, like, I probably can make that. I'll put slope angle shading on there, but sometimes there'll be cliffs hiding in there and stuff. I just throw on the satellite, and then you can get a really good look at like what the terrain looks like. And like whether you can make it. 3D satellite is just amazing planning tool for me, and just probably my favorite feature. You can create a route and view that route in 3D satellite. You can also record a track and then view that in 3D satellite. So it's just amazing feature. I love it.
Jim?
I think my favorite feature is an extension of the routing that Tony talked about, but that is now available offline in the app. So when you download a map, you can download the offline routing data and then create the snap to trail routes without service. And I find that super valuable.
Yeah, it's really cool for like, hey, I want to go over to that lake. Like, how many miles is it if I stay on the trail? Which is a great way to do that quickly and get those distances accurately while you're in the field without any service.
It's true. Sometimes we have to change the plan and to understand the options that are in front of us. That's a useful tool. Well, are there any questions popping through the chat right here? I don't see any.
Are there any questions that we missed?
Yeah.
See, I'm scrolling and I think we did all of them. Yeah.
So many Emma Walkers here tonight.
I know.
Emma's got some good questions tonight.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. I think we handled all the questions. We dropped that Google Doc in the chat there, so please take that and use that. It links to all of our Help Center articles that show you how to do use specific tools in the app. Yeah, and let's see. Yep, and you all should have your free 1-year membership and a link to hand out to your students for a free trial for 60 days. Feel free to pass that around to all your clients. We like to see people take advantage of that and get using it. So yeah, we really appreciate working with you guys. I think we've got great feedback from you all to go back and tell our product teams to, these great ideas that you gave us. So we really appreciate feedback too. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mary, Jim, and Tony for bringing all of the expertise that you work so hard at. Like you said, we as instructors are kind of on the idea that if we can tap into this stuff and keep learning about things, it makes us better instructors, helps us engage with our students with better tools. And you guys are a unique pathway for us to be able to do that when we are creating these opportunities. So, so real quick, like to the members of the the webinar. I'm going to share screen again and show a couple of upcoming webinars real quick. So trying to share screen here. Let's see if this works for real this time. Looks like I'm sharing my screen. We have upcoming webinars, one on inclusion, an introduction to the new Ortovox Direct voice transceiver, and tapping into Dr. Sarah Boland's presentation on our brains, and finally checking in with Steve Conger on avalanche risk management for education objectives. So again, you can follow the links, follow the link shown on the website here to register for those CE sessions. And I'll stop sharing here. Everybody's got that. And again, just say thanks to our panelists for their presentation tonight. Thanks to everybody on the webinar for tuning in. And thanks to Ari for putting all this stuff together and giving us the opportunity to check stuff out. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was our
Very
pleasure.
welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Bye for now.